So I've got a theory about Trey Lance starting sooner than you think for the Cowboys, and we'll talk about that and more, including the Cowboys game versus the Commanders and some key injury updates leading up to Week 12. What is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Prime Time. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays with quick hitting videos. But it is Thursday, so that means we are live here on the show. And although the Cowboys play the Commanders on Sunday, I think I've gotten the message. Cowboys Nation doesn't really care for full-on previews right now because the season feels pretty much lost. That's why last night we talked about Deion Sanders and the whole conversation about him going to Dallas. I think it was made even more unlikely today with the whole news about them securing the top quarterback or one of the top quarterbacks in the nation that was supposedly going to LSU, but now they flipped him to Colorado. Anyways, maybe the conversation for another day. But I did want to talk quarterbacks, and I did want to talk about Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, and I wanted to share my theory with you as to why I believe Trey Lance might be closer to starting for the Cowboys than we might think. And I want to tell you something. It has a little to do with football, a lot to do with football, but it's also by looking at something beyond the football field. And I'll show you what I mean here. And I'll admit, this is maybe just a theory from my side, right? We're not reporting on anything or not giving you like breaking news or anything like that. I think on Sunday, as the Cowboys have made very clear, Dallas will go out there on the field versus the Commanders, and they will play with Cooper Rush. Now, they've said that they will involve Trey Lance a little bit here and there with some packages, right? So what does that mean? Maybe it means that we'll see Trey Lance go in on short yardage situations, and maybe they want to use his legs as a threat to the opposing defense. Or maybe when they get down to the red zone, maybe they want to get Trey Lance involved a little bit. Whatever it may be, don't expect a lot of it. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I can have out of today's or this week's interviews with players and press conferences. They're saying they will involve Trey Lance, but let's listen to what Trey Lance is saying, right? Because he's talking to reporters and he's telling them he's not getting any first-team reps. He's getting the scout team reps. And now Will Grier is eating into those a little bit from what it sounds like. And not to say that Will Grier will overtake Trey Lance or anything like that. But when Trey Lance tells reporters his practice routine is not changed, I don't know why we'd expect his playing time on Sunday to change. That's been a little bit weird to me. If they're planning on increasing his role, I would assume Mike McCarthy, who likes to talk a big game about the reps and how Trey Lance needs them, I would assume he would be giving him a little bit more first-team reps. So I just want to point out, if you're looking for Trey Lance to have an increased role on offense on Sunday, expect it to be very, very limited. It might go from 0 snaps to 3 snaps, unless it gets really ugly with Cooper Rush out there. And I know it's been ugly, right? I see Holly here saying 19 really cannot do any worse than 10. And I do think it's one of those things I always like to say. We always get burned with these kind of comments. I remember when Anthony Brown went down injured 2 years ago, when people were like, oh, no biggie. Anthony Brown always get burned. And then we went through a whole carousel of injured outside cornerbacks, and it was hideous. And so we always get burned with those sort of comments, but I know where Holly is coming from, and personally, I do agree with it. I don't think Trey Lance would be necessarily worse. I think you would be taking a bigger risk, because I could totally see Trey Lance giving the game away with 4 turnovers or something like that. At the same time, you pretty much already went through a 5-turnover game with Cooper Rush at the helm, although to be fair, 1 interception out of those 5 turnovers was Trey Lance's. There were 2 fumbles, though, from Cooper Rush, so you You could say that it was still a multi-turnover game for Cooper Rush, even if it was in interceptions. And then you had the sick fumble and you had the Jake Ferguson fumble on that game versus the Eagles. But what I'm saying is, I think there's more upside with Trey Lance, but there's definitely a lot of risk as far as turnovers goes because, Trey has proven that he'll give the defense opportunities with the whole, with his whole style, right? Cam says Lance looks like he's just running for his life. And yeah, it does seem to me that Trey Lance is still a little bit impatient when that pocket is not perfect. And sometimes he's got a clean pocket and he will still try to run away and maybe create some magic when he doesn't really need to. But we'll see. I think on Sunday the Commanders get Cooper Rush. But here's where my theory comes in about Trey Lance potentially starting sooner than we think. I'm looking at the Thanksgiving prices for the at AT&T Stadium, and let me show you what I'm seeing here. Over on the bleachers, and this is, near the 40, 50-yard line, you're getting $62 tickets at AT&T Stadium. You're getting $53 here, $86 over here. Let me show you. This is right down the 50 sideline. This is a tweet I put up yesterday, and it actually went kind of viral. So I decided, hey, why not talk about this on primetime? You can get $47 here in the bleachers. Let me show you the opposite side of this. So according to El Paso Times, they had some numbers at the beginning of the season when they were showing some ticket prices averages. So this sits near the field, right? These club seats, as they like to call them, they're usually 4-digit tickets. And now they're like, you can get one here for $315, right? You can get that one over here for $293 as well. I don't know if you can look at this right here, right? $358, $202 over here. These are cheap tickets, guys. These are very cheap tickets. Let me show you something else, though. Let me show you something else. How do I erase this? All right, here you go. I'm going to go to another tweet here that I had on this same thread. Right, according to El Paso, fans will pay for Thanksgiving games $1,000 and $1,300 per ticket for seats near the field. Look at these numbers right here. This is the Cowboys sideline. And you can get a $451 ticket right there. Right behind the Cowboys sideline. $451 right there. You're right there with the Cowboys. Tickets are very, very cheap going into this one, into Thanksgiving. And if you go out there with Trey Lance, and if you go out there with Cooper Rush, like let's go through the timeline here. Cowboys play the Commanders on Sunday. I don't think a lot of us expect that to go very well, right? The Commanders are legit. So naturally, you would assume they're going to beat the Cowboys. That's the most likely outcome for Sunday. Any given Sunday, yep, anything can happen in the NFL, but I have seen zero things from the Cowboys to make me believe that they will pull off that upset. I talked about a potential upset on Monday night because I thought, hey, you know what? The Texans are not that good these days, and they're shooting themselves a lot on the foot. It didn't have a lot to do with the Cowboys themselves, though. So let's say they walk out there with Cooper Rush and it's a bad game once more. You're already seeing the ticket prices for Thanksgiving, and you're going to put one more bad game from Cooper Rush out there. How are you going to maintain fan interest? Fan fatigue has settled in for Cowboys Nation. People don't want to go to AT&T Stadium. There are exceptions, sure, and people will be in the stands for the game, and people will look at the prices and will go, hell yeah, let's get some at a discount and let's go enjoy ourselves a Cowboys game. But you can see right now that fans are not exactly happy. So if you lose on Sunday, I'm thinking the Trey Lance decision might become more of a fan interest decision than a football decision, right? No longer will it be let's try to find a spark on offense with Trey Lance. It will be let's try to pick fan interest as much as we can with a 3-8 team by announcing that we're playing Trey Lance. I think that's what's going to happen personally. I realize I'm just theorizing here and using the whole, foil hat and everything that you want to say. But right now, if I had to predict what's going to happen in the next week, it's going to be Cooper Rush plays on Sunday. And even if it isn't his worst game as a Cowboys quarterback, which would be very difficult to top after that 45-yard performance versus the Eagles, I think Trey Lance quarterbacks the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I'm thinking there's a chance we see him on Sunday versus the Commanders, but it's going to be either on a very small role or if they just bench Cooper Rush because it's another ugly game from him, and then they just build on that and make him the starter for Thursday, or we don't see Trey Lance at all, and we get him as a starting quarterback on Thursday. That's where I am at right now with the quarterback position. And personally, I would like it. I would enjoy it. I don't think anyone enjoys watching the current Cowboys offense. So if you can give me a guy that is also going to turn it over, but that is going to be exciting at times, running the ball and throwing it deep and showing off some arm strength, I'll take it. As a football consumer, hell yeah, I'll take Trey Lance over Cooper Rush any time of the week, especially now that the season is over. If this was a 4-game absence from Dak Prescott and the Cowboys were still in it, I would be like, you know what? Maybe I would much rather bet on Cooper Rush and try to hope for the best with the defense and the running game. But none of that matters right now. So if we take that into consideration, as a football consumer only, get me the exciting quarterback. And I think the Cowboys might feel that way as well, given what you're seeing from the ticket prices at AT&T Stadium. I'm very surprised at those. I'm not going to lie to you. Morris Jackson says, money is the only language that Jerry understands. I'll tell you this. I would be very surprised if Jerry isn't like feeling that. And I'm not even going to say that they're going to feel it in the bottom line. The Cowboys are a corporation made up of so many enterprises, and they have such a diverse portfolio right now that money-wise, they likely don't even care about Thanksgiving prices being so low, right? If we're being real. But if we're talking about the fan interest of it, I can guarantee you Jerry's not happy looking at these numbers, right? He's not happy. And then there's a reseller thing and everything. Like, Jerry Jones, what really hurts him right now, I think, is the fan interest aspect of it, not really the ticket prices aspect of it. But they're seeing this, I would assume. They know something's wrong, and they might know there's going to be something that will have to be done, right? Alex says, bring in Trey Lance. We have nothing to lose. It's not like we were going to make the playoffs with Dak anyway. Seriously. Gregory says, Lance just cannot read a defense, at least not near quick enough. Leave Cooper Rush in. And I do agree, Trey Lance has some struggles with reading the defense, and I'm particularly not very optimistic about playing Trey Lance. But the fun factor of it, oh, hell yeah. Joey Bella says, Mauricio, take us all to the game. Hey, that would be a pretty cool experience, actually. If I was in Dallas, maybe I would make that happen. Unfortunately, I'm not. But anyways, let's turn the page here a little bit, and let's talk about some unfortunate injury updates on the Cowboys side of things, man. Honestly, at this point, I know we don't really, care again. I know people are not checking into the injury report as they would be with a full season. But you get Marquise Bell, obviously, the shoulder injury happened. He's going to be out. How about Deron Bland? Putting together full practices and looking like he will be back on the field on Sunday. They have not confirmed it, but Jerry Jones did say on 105.3 The Fan that they expect Bland to be back on the field. And based on Stephen Jones's own comments from last week, it is going to happen. We're going to see Deron Bland on the field. Unfortunately, though, for Dallas, Trevon Diggs, the same week that you're expecting Bland to be back, you get a downgraded Trevon Diggs on Thursday with a groin/knee injury. He was limited in practice today. I'm just saying the fact that he was downgraded is never promising. So that is something to be in the lookout for. We might not get Bland and Diggs at the same time on the field, and that's just upsetting. Like if Bland comes back the same week that Trevon Diggs goes out, that is going to be very upsetting, I would say. Also, a name to watch is Brandon Cooks. He's been limited to practices. And I kind of, the thing that really takes or gets my attention is the fact that you see Bland being a full participant and then Cooks limited. I'm not sure what the game status is going to be for Brandon Cooks. He's going to be questionable for sure on Friday, I would assume. But I'm not sure what the expectation is there. Jake Ferguson likely not going to play. They set this since Monday. And I would assume just because of the way that the concussion protocol is set up, the fact that this is a 6-day week instead of a 7-day week, with the Cowboys playing on Monday and then on Sunday, I think that really plays against Ferguson, which really also, by the way, kind of sets up a very interesting scenario for Cowboys tight ends, because I think Brevin Spanford was one of the positives, perhaps the only positive from Monday's loss to the Texans. And you also saw some legit Luke Schoonmaker plays. And I'm talking about them as receivers, and I'm talking about them as blockers. So if you don't get Jake Ferguson on this one, gonna be a big game to evaluate tight ends with Spanford and Schoonmaker getting a lot of playing time in my view. Other than that, you also get Marshawn Neiland limited to practices, so we'll see if the rookie comes back for this one. Cowboy Stephen Jones kind of suggested that he expected that to happen last week. So good news there on the rookie. This is the most worrying update, I would argue. You get CeeDee Lamb downgraded from limited to a DNP. So it looks like CeeDee Lamb is at legit risk of not playing on Sunday. And I think that's a shame because you look at the Commanders, and if there's one thing that you could see the Cowboys taking advantage of, is their cornerback room versus CeeDee. Sure, they went and acquired Marshawn Lattimore, but he's new in the scheme. He's adapting to a new team. And I would assume that would have been a very, very fun matchup to watch. If we don't get CeeDee Lamb, though, man, this offense is, I know it's already struggling. I know many people will say it cannot get any worse. Oh, it can. And if Lamb does not play, it will get worse, right? Lipke upgraded. That's good. Jordan Lewis limited, a name to watch, back-to-back practices. And then no surprises here. A bunch of DMPs, including the guards. And this is where it just gets, man, and I'll jump into the thoughts for the game now. Oh, man, the offense has been bad, I know. But if there's no CeeDee, and I'm not saying there will be no CeeDee, but I'm saying the fact that he was downgraded on Thursday was not particularly promising. This offense has sucked. And if you get no CeeDee Lamb, and in addition to the offensive tackle trouble you're already going through, you are taking away Zach Martin and you're taking away Tyler Smith, oh boy, it can get Alabama versus Mercer level of ugly. Like a college football powerhouse versus FCS opponent level of ugly, in my view. Gregory says, my game prediction is Washington 34, Cowboys 20. We'll get to that in a moment, but if there's no Lamb, and there's no Martin, and there's no Tyler Smith, I don't know how you get to 20 if it's not through the Ron Bland getting a pick six. And I wouldn't want CeeDee. I mean, I agree with Lamb right here, with Cam right here, excuse me. He says Lamb has been getting beat up. This is one of those situations where you're really at a point in the season where you're like, CeeDee, I agree, has clearly been playing hurt. At what point did you just rest the guy? And the same goes for Zach Martin. The same goes for Tyler Smith, I would argue. Even the Ron Bland coming back to me is a little bit of a surprise. But I do think that, he's been rusty, or he's going to be rusty because he has not played all year. You might want to get that out of the way before 2025. So even that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, I don't know about CeeDee Lamb playing this particular game. But let's see here. This game is definitely, says Holly, is giving me 42-17 vibes. Man, I'm scared about that, but I could see it happening. And here's the thing. Let's jump straight right into it. Because I have a big thought about this game, Cowboys versus Commanders. And actually, before I do that, let me tell you something. Let me ask you something, actually. Are you at all excited, yes or no, about the Cowboys facing Dan Quinn? Because this was supposed to be a big matchup at the beginning of the season. Cowboys versus Dan Quinn. Let me tell you, how do you feel about that matchup going into this weekend? While you give me that answer in the chat, though, let me talk to you about our friends over at Texas Card House, where you can join the premier poker experience, where the thrill of the game meets the excitement of the community. And if you like to play poker, you know how important it is to play with the right community. And here you get the perfect mix of luxury, sophistication, and camaraderie for any poker aficionado. And that goes if you're a seasoned pro or you're just starting out in poker, you're gonna get the perfect environment at any of their 6 Texas locations. And remember, if you go to Texas Card House, and you go to the Las Colinas venue or the Dallas venue, and you just mention us, mention A to Z Sports, you will get a free month of membership and 2 free hours to play poker. Or you can go to their website at Texas Card House, use promo code AZ Sports. Just go there, let them know that that we sent you, and you'll get a free month of membership at a perfect location to play poker. I love playing poker, man. Texas Card House just gives you what you need to do so at a very high level, man. And it's an exciting opportunity. So just go and let them know, hey, A to Z Sports sent us, and you'll get the benefits. Let's see, though. Holly says no. Gregory says no. Katharina says heck no. So there's no excitement of facing Dan Quinn. Holly says if we were good, I would be anxious about Dan Quinn. And here's the thing. Here's what I was thinking about Cowboys versus Commanders. Oh, man, it stinks, doesn't it? It absolutely stinks. When we heard that Dan Quinn was headed to the Commanders, I think a lot of our reactions were on the most, at least, man, I don't know how to phrase this. I think we were pessimistic about the Commanders' chances of really getting better. Or they were going to get better, but I don't think we saw this particular year coming for Washington. Now, they've regressed a little bit, right? They're not exactly the NFC powerhouse that they were looking like earlier in the year. They faced a little bit tougher opponents, and they've been punched back to reality a little bit. They lost to the Steelers. They got blown out by the Eagles. So there's still some flaws there. But it stings that the Commanders are where they are at and the Cowboys are where they're at. Dan Quinn right now is, over the last few weeks, I would say, overachieving with the talent that he has on defense. His team went out there and they got Marshawn Lattimore at the trade deadline. He's got quite the play caller at offensive coordinator with Cliff Kingsbury. And the Cowboys, man, they're 3-7. Oh, that one stings. And you read the quotes about players, both from the Commanders, where they're like, hey, Dorrance Armstrong is grinning and telling reporters, oh, it's bad in Dallas. Armstrong, who was just in Dallas last year, kind of like not being able to hold it back and take that slight jab at his former team. And then you get Micah Parsons talking about how much he loves Dan Quinn and how much he misses the guy, basically. And it's like, man, oh man, this could not have played out any worse for the Cowboys, if we're being honest. And I do agree with Cam here as well. Like, the Cowboys, they cannot wait for the season to be over. I kind of feel like they're checked out. And in the defense of the players, how are you not at least a little bit checked out? Unless you're playing for I think, and they were talking about this on the Cowboys post-game live show recently. I don't remember who exactly it was that was saying, at some point, I think the motivation goes from a team perspective, where you're trying to win games and you're trying to get to the playoffs, and the motivation kind of has to shift to, I got to look out for myself, and then you get several effects. I think you still see some plays on Trevon Diggs' tape where he's making business decisions, and I think you see that from other players as well. But there's also the positive side where there are some players kind of like playing for their curriculum, right? They know they're going to have to find a team that wants to play them, be it Dallas or be it somewhere else. Your film is your resume in the NFL. So some of these players, they just got to keep playing at a high effort, right? So that doesn't really change for them. But yeah, I don't think there's cohesiveness at times within the Dallas Cowboys, and it is what it is, I guess. By the way, holy smokes, the Browns are 10-3 right now, leading the game 10-3 versus the Steelers. I have not been paying a lot of attention because of the show and everything, but hey, we'll watch the second half, I guess. Catherine says, honestly, Mo, our players don't even look like they're even playing anymore. Troy says, that's what happens when you blow. What the F? Or Washington football team, I thought you were saying what the F, has had picks and plenty of cap space. Yeah, they've done things the right way, honestly, over the last couple of years with their new front office and everything. So we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see how this plays out. I think the Cowboys lose. I think that goes on set, right? I think it's going to be an ugly game, to be honest with you, because I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to be locked in. I think Dan Quinn has this team fired up to play against them. And I know it wasn't a situation where the Cowboys fired Dan Quinn or anything like that, but I think there's still some rivalry there that I'm excited to watch, and we'll see how it all plays out. But I think the Commanders win on Sunday. And, man, these losses are piling up. The last time that we expected, you could say, the Cowboys to win was when they faced the Steelers, which is the last time they got a win. So that's also kind of like the sad part about it, right? When we picked the game versus the Niners, we were all picking the Niners. When they played the Falcons, we were all picking the Falcons. And that's been the case for the last couple of weeks as well. Now, the questions that are very exciting ahead of Saturday, Gregory says, who do you got? Number 5 ranked Indiana or number 2 Ohio State? Oh, boy. Oh, man. I think it's going to be Ohio State. And it's an early game, too, which is very exciting because you get up on Saturday. If you're into the UFC, you're going to be up earlier than college football begins. And then we're going to move on to that game. Oh, it's going to be fun. I'm going to say Ohio State. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. I'll see you on Sunday, hopefully, to discuss a win, I guess. But hopefully to discuss at least some fun stuff, man. Game is early. Game is at noon. And I'll see you at 8 p.m. Central. Ladies and gentlemen, bye-bye. Hit the like button for me. Bye-bye.